Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a topic that has been making waves across Europe and beyond, and that is Sweden's strong stance against Russia's ongoing aggression in Ukraine. As the war drags on and the consequences continue to ripple across the globe, Sweden has stepped forward in a way that has caught the attention of many. This video will explore why Sweden has had enough of Russia, how its position has evolved over time, and what it means for Ukraine, NATO, and the broader international community. For decades, Sweden was known for its neutrality. It avoided military alliances and chose instead to focus on diplomacy, peace-building, and its own national security. But Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 fundamentally shifted this mindset. What once was a country deeply committed to staying out of military blocs is now preparing to be a full member of NATO. That change alone speaks volumes about just how serious Sweden is when it comes to pushing back against Russia's aggressive behavior. Sweden has been providing humanitarian aid, military support, and political backing to Ukraine since the very start of the war. Unlike some countries that hesitated or limited their contributions, Sweden quickly recognized that Russia's invasion was not just a threat to Ukraine, but a direct threat to European stability. For Swedes, the idea of Russia expanding its influence by force was unacceptable, and their government made it clear that Ukraine's fight is also a fight for democracy and freedom in Europe. One of the strongest messages Sweden has sent to Moscow is that there is no room for compromise on Ukraine's sovereignty. Sweden's leaders have repeatedly called on Russia to end the war, withdraw its forces, and respect international law. When Swedish officials say, "Get out of Ukraine," it's not just rhetoric, it's backed up by real action. Sweden has contributed advanced weapon systems, training for Ukrainian soldiers, and financial assistance to keep the Ukrainian government functioning under such intense pressure. But it's not only about sending aid. Sweden's decision to apply for NATO membership was a seismic event in European politics. For Russia, it was the exact opposite of what it wanted. Moscow has long opposed NATO's eastward expansion, using it as an excuse for its invasion of Ukraine. But ironically, Putin's actions achieved the very thing he sought to prevent. Not only has NATO grown more united, but Sweden and Finland, two historically non-aligned countries, decided they were safer inside the alliance than outside it. Sweden's message is clear. Russia's aggression has consequences, and the world will not simply sit back and watch. Public opinion in Sweden has also undergone a dramatic transformation. Before the war, many Swedes were skeptical about joining NATO or becoming deeply involved in conflicts abroad. However, once Russia launched its full-scale invasion, public sentiment shifted almost overnight. People began to see Ukraine's fight as their own fight, recognizing that if Russia could invade one European country without consequence, it could potentially try the same elsewhere. That awareness has fueled political will and created a unified voice across Swedish society, demanding support for Ukraine and rejection of Russian aggression. Sweden has also been active on the international stage, working with the European Union to impose sanctions on Russia. From targeting Russian banks and oligarchs to cutting off key technology exports, Sweden has consistently backed measures designed to weaken Russia's ability to sustain its war machine. These sanctions are not symbolic. They are a deliberate attempt to pressure the Russian government economically while showing solidarity with Ukraine. It's important to understand that Sweden's position comes at a cost. Russia has threatened consequences, engaged in cyber attacks, and even spread disinformation targeting Sweden. Moscow has tried to intimidate and destabilize Sweden's internal politics, hoping to weaken its resolve. Yet instead of backing down, Sweden has grown even more determined. Each new attempt by Russia to pressure Sweden has only reinforced the idea that the Kremlin cannot be trusted and that its influence must be resisted. For Ukraine, Sweden's support is more than just symbolic. Swedish military aid includes anti-aircraft systems, armored vehicles, and training that directly help Ukrainian forces on the battlefield. Sweden has also provided advanced technologies that strengthen Ukraine's ability to defend itself against Russian missile and drone attacks. These contributions are saving lives and making a real difference in the war effort. But beyond the battlefield, Sweden's stance sends a powerful moral message. It shows that even countries not traditionally involved in military conflicts are willing to stand up for what is right. This leadership inspires others in Europe and reinforces the idea that Russia's war is not just against Ukraine, but against the very principles of democracy, sovereignty, and freedom. At the same time, Sweden understands that words and weapons alone are not enough. That's why it has also been deeply engaged in humanitarian aid. Sweden has provided shelter, medical supplies, and financial support for millions of Ukrainians who were forced to flee their homes. The Swedish people have opened their communities to refugees, offering safety and stability in a time of crisis. This compassion highlights another dimension of Sweden's response: solidarity with the victims of war, not just resistance to the aggressor. Looking at the bigger picture, Sweden's transformation represents a wider trend across Europe. Countries that once believed peace was guaranteed are now realizing that peace must be defended. The Russian invasion shattered illusions about stability on the continent, and Sweden's strong stance is part of a broader awakening. This shift matters because the more countries commit to supporting Ukraine, the harder it becomes for Russia to sustain its aggression. It's also worth noting that Sweden has played a role in shaping conversations about accountability. Swedish officials have supported international efforts to investigate and prosecute Russian war crimes in Ukraine. From atrocities committed in Bucha to attacks on civilian infrastructure, Sweden has been clear that justice must be served. By pushing for accountability, Sweden is reminding the world that wars are not just about territory, they are about people, and those who commit crimes must answer for them. What makes Sweden's position especially powerful is that it doesn't stand alone. It acts as part of a broader coalition, working hand in hand with NATO allies, the EU, and partners around the world. This unity matters because it prevents Russia from isolating Ukraine or dividing the West. Every time Sweden voices its support, contributes aid, or strengthens its defenses, it adds another layer of pressure on Moscow to reconsider its path. As the war continues, Sweden's message remains firm. Russia must leave Ukraine. There is no middle ground, no acceptable compromise where Ukraine loses its land or its freedom. This clarity is vital because it prevents the conversation from shifting into dangerous territory where aggressors are rewarded for their actions. Sweden has drawn a line, and it's one that many other nations are following. It shows how even a country that once prioritized staying out of conflicts can be pushed to take a stand when fundamental values are threatened. Sweden has had enough of Russia, and through military aid, humanitarian support, sanctions, and NATO membership, it is making its voice heard loud and clear. For Ukraine, that support means survival. For Europe, it means security. And for the world, it is a reminder that aggression will always meet resistance. This is a moment in history where choices matter. Sweden has made its choice, and it has chosen to stand with Ukraine, to defend freedom, and to send a message to Russia: get out of Ukraine.